Welcome to the Hammer Nail Show, episode number 27. I'm Jack Hammer. To the side of me here is my co-host Jessie Naylor, and we're doing a little bit different time this week. But hope everybody is doing well. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing tonight, Jessie?
Jack, I'm fantastic. I was a little worried there because we couldn't do the show last week. I'm going out of town this week on our normal day. And of course, you came up with the perfect solution. Why not just change nights? So here we are. It's Hammer and Nails on a Monday. Rob V says it. Let's get hammered.
That's right. Hey, it can't get any better than this Monday night. We don't need to watch the Monday night game. 49ers aren't playing anyway.
Right.
And great way to kind of bridge the gap between missing last Thursday and then this next Thursday not being able to work out. So we kind of fit us in between there in the middle. Works out all perfect. So uh, let's go. Let's just jump into it. I know we have a bunch of different topics that we wanted to touch on. And, the 49ers really need to step it up here. They're coming out of the bye week at 2-3. No longer in the basement of the NFC West, though, thanks to Pittsburgh winning last night over Seattle. What are some of the biggest improvements you see that the Flyers need to be able to make coming out of this bye?
Man, they have to establish an identity, right? I mean, what is the identity? I just feel like going into the season, we thought the defensive line would be really strong, which I feel like they've done a really good job, actually. And this would be a running game, right? Like running offense, that's what they're going to go off of, play action, all of that. And the running game has just been up and down, to say the least. They haven't committed to it. They've shown flashes, but they haven't made it a staple of this offense. So I feel like the biggest improvement needed is they have to control the clock. They have to run the ball, and they have to get back to what they did well in the past. And whether the quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, both of those guys need to have the benefit of a strong running game for them to be better. And that's what they have to do. That has to be the staple of this offense going forward. So to me, I'm going to say that running game.
Yeah, I agree. It's on the running game, and in particular with the running game, the right side of the offensive line, being able to run to the right side, because right now they can't. They do a really good job running to the left. They struggle running to the right. I agree with you on the identity piece, because whatever they did last week against Arizona, that's not 49er football that we've come to know over the last 4+ years. That was not a very good game plan in my opinion, especially with the rookie quarterback asking him to run the ball 12 times. Plus he has the other 4 that are scrambles. Yeah, I don't agree with that. So the other thing, though, outside to go in a different direction from what you did, because I agree with your take there, is they need to get the ball to more people. Deebo Samuel getting 52 targets with the next closest receiver at 16, and that receiver being Mohamed Sanu, that does not cut it for an offense that has guys like Brandon Ayuk available to them, and these running, and even the running game that they have, or for that matter, the tight end. I understand that George Kittle's not there, but we saw his replacement make a touchdown reception against Seattle on the opening drive. Yeah. So Ross Dwelley, I think, is a guy who deserves some targets as well. And right now, like I said, they just need to start spreading the ball around more.
Yeah, absolutely. This offense is stagnant, regardless of who's playing. We've seen it now for really since week 2. This offense just cannot put things together. So, they'll have a half or they'll have a quarter, but we have not seen a complete game from this offense whatsoever. We've definitely seen it from the defense multiple times. This offense has got to get it figured out 100%.
Yeah, they definitely do. The defense, I think, gets a little bit of a break because of the performance they put up the last 2 weeks, but they've struggled. They struggled a little bit against Green Bay early on, especially. They kind of balanced it out, but they gave up 17 points early in that one. And they struggled in the second half against Detroit, but that's a different situation. Really, the only team they really struggled with was Aaron Rodgers. And most defenses are going to have kind of a little bit of a rough night with Aaron Rodgers. So, and overall, I thought they played well in that game. Would have been nice to have seen them hold them at the end. That's really the only
I know.
negative.
Yeah, that 37 seconds.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of ways that we can get into how that shouldn't have been there. The other takeaway that I've had or the question I had is, why does this team feel so disjointed? They just don't feel right. And I think you kind of mentioned on it with the lack of, they're lacking their identity.
Yeah, they're lacking their identity, and frankly, I mean that just falls on Kyle. It just does. There's no way to sugarcoat it or make it seem like it's something that it's not. I mean, the identity comes from your leader, and Kyle's supposed to be the leader of this team. He has, I mean, for the most part, has always had teams that run the ball well, and that's been their identity. And for whatever reason, they're not doing it. Um, you know, it really started in the offseason too, right? Like you've got a situation where you basically drafted a whole bunch of guys that you intended on redshirting, it seems. And yet your team wasn't talented enough to do that. You actually needed some of these guys to contribute. And we're seeing that, you've got the quarterback situation at play, which, whether you want Jimmy or you want Trey, it's an issue. It just is. I'm not saying it's an issue where it's tearing the locker room apart at this point, but I'm saying it's an issue in the point that you clearly have two separate offenses that you're trying to run right now. When Trey comes in, that is a completely different offense. And so if you're trying to learn two different offenses to be effective, I mean, it's impossible for these players to play it at a top level and execute at a top level. And we saw that last week. They had a drive where it took over 7 minutes. It was a 12-play drive and they went 18 yards, Jack. The whole team was out of sync, and some of that was on Trey and some of that was on other players, but it was the silliest drive I probably can ever remember. It just made zero sense, and it all falls back on Kyle. So yeah, he's the reason right now that this team's so disjointed.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree with you here. It goes back to the fact that, and I put an article out today and it was talking about this, is they decided that they're going to go ahead and stick with Jimmy Garoppolo. And they said that, and they decided early on that Garoppolo was going to be the starting quarterback. And that's fine. That's the direction that you want to go. But you can't come out and, in training camp be running plays. And then when asked about those, say, yeah, that quarterback got to run that play with the starting group because that's a play that only he's going to run. You can't have plays that are designed for only one quarterback and spending that time preparing everybody for a play that's only going to be run if one guy's playing. It just doesn't work. And that's for me, that's really why this team is so disjointed. They have so many different things that are going on. They're not focused on winning. They're not focused on the little things. And that little things that they're not hitting every week are why they're losing games and why they're 2-3, because I believe they're a better team than Seattle. I believe that they're a better team than Arizona. They should not be 2-3 right now. This team should be 4-1 or 3-2 at the worst. Because even those little things that we're talking about were part of the reason why they lost to Green Bay as well, quite frankly. And I understand the opposite side of that. You could say they could easily be 1-4 as well. And that's true. I just think they kind of they were able to handle the little things and make it so against Philadelphia. They got to the point against Philadelphia where they frustrated those guys so much that they started losing their way.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately they were just better teams than Detroit and Philly. They're more talented, and talent ultimately won out. But when it came down to playing teams that were similar to you in talent, they were just out executed. And if they could have just executed on one play, really in all those games, it was one play that could have changed things and made it different, right? You look at the Green Bay game, a couple clock management things. You could have done that on the kickoff. That could have been your one play. It could have been when the clock was running and you had 12 seconds left on the play clock. That could have been the one play where you ran out the clock a little bit more. You could have called timeout when your defense was running around like crazy, looking lost on the last play. I mean, any one of those threes, you pick any one of those and you change it, you probably win that game. Same thing with Seattle. I mean, really, they were one play away. If they score one more touchdown in that first half, that's probably game. Heck, if they don't have the special teams fumble, that's probably it. And then against Arizona, the drive where they came up empty and were 1 inch away from scoring, so for them to have those execution issues and be really one play away from being 5-0 in each of those games, it's unfortunate. And, this league is hard to win in as is. And so when you're shooting yourself in the foot constantly and you lose 3 games that you really could have won early in the year, you have to be perfect for the rest of the year. You can't, this disjointed stuff and this shooting yourself in the foot cannot happen the rest of the year. You have to play sound football if you want to be a playoff team at this point.
Oh, definitely. And the points you make about the special teams and stuff like that, like in the Seattle game, if they make that field goal and they're up 10-0, I understand it's only 10 points, but that's a completely different situation than being up 7-0. It just is. And I would say the same thing in the Arizona game. I understand it's still going to be a 51-yard field goal on that one drive when they went for it on 4th and 2, I believe it was, when Lance got stopped short on the run to the right. It's still going to be a 51-yard field goal, but let's just say you kick it and you make it from there. You're up 7, you're still behind 7-3, but I think 7-3 Arizona feels different than 7-0. And the same thing with the 49ers. I think they feel different. Even on the next drive, if they kick a field goal again and it's 7-6, I think at 7-6 you feel completely different. I'm not a big fan of not putting points on the board when you have opportunities, especially when you're playing a good defense like Arizona is, and you're playing against a divisional matchup in particular. Those are situations where I want to put points on the board every single chance that I can, because those are always going to come down to usually be tight games at the end. And then real quick over here, I got a good comment I wanted to throw up here as far as what we're talking about. Luke says, anyone remember when they asked Kyle Shanahan why they didn't want to sign Kaepernick? And he answers that for us. He said it was too hard. Shanahan said it was too hard for the rest of the players to learn 2 offensive systems at the same time. This is 100% correct. And it's quite frankly very funny to me in so many ways that the 49ers are in the situation that they're in. I think he just hit the nail on the head right there.
Listen, and I think we've beaten it into the ground, but it's all these things that make you wonder, was Trey really the guy? Obviously he's the pick I wanted. And I'm glad that he ended up being the guy, but it's just like, man, there's so many things that say that he wasn't. I don't know.
No, I agree with you. And I know this isn't a topic of tonight, but it's a good point. Was Lance the guy? And all I'm going to say on that is we saw with Adam Schefter last week what happens with these guys that are in the national media. And what I'm talking about is how Adam Schefter got caught up in this whole Washington football team email scandal, where he had a story, and instead of running with it and putting it out there after working with a source, he sends his source the email to edit it. Basically, that's the way he worded it. And so these guys work with the teams. It's all close. They know what's going on. For there to be so much smoke around that from those guys, that had to be coming from someone deep inside the 49ers organization. And I think that, it's just another way, and I should have had this as part of what I wrote today too, but that's just another part of the way that everything's gone wrong with the 49ers. It's not because, I'm not saying that went wrong because they drafted Trey Lance, but everything that's been wrong with the 49ers is that everything this offseason has been all about trying to show everybody how smart we are. And we're going to outsmart you, and we're going to, fake you out. We're going to tell you this, but we're going to do this. It's been that way all off season. And we saw it play out on the field on last Sunday, really, I think, with the way the offense played.
And that's just it, right? Okay, so let's operate under the assumption that Trey was the guy, right? Let's leave all that out for a second. So if Trey was the guy, a lot of it makes sense though, right, Jack? So this was a kid that played under center more than any of those other guys. This is a kid that came and had a verbose playbook. This is a kid that called checks and protections at the line. This is a kid that called audibles at the line. He was a quick learner. He ran play action under center. All those things make sense. He ran a similar offense to what he would be asked to do in a Kyle Shanahan offense. So then why, when he finally plays, you do none of that? There's a video, I believe it's on NBC Sports, where it's like what happened with the whole Trey Lance thing. And they interview his offensive coordinator from NDSU. And he says that all of that. Hey, we feel like this is a great fit for Trey. All the things that we did, that's what Shanahan wants to do. And then he gets in the game and they treat him like they wanted to draft Justin Fields. Shotgun, running the ball, whatever. It just, none of it made any sense. Trey can play under center. That's what he's done in college. That's what you should expect him to do. Changing this offense completely makes no sense. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be some things that you do with Trey that you don't do with Jimmy, because he is mobile and athletic. I get that. But that should be 20%. That shouldn't be a whole overhaul of your playbook when a new quarterback comes in. That's crazy to me. And it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's really the biggest overhaul with what they did with Lance was from the running game perspective. When you look at the stuff they were doing in the passing game, it was all very similar, and they do it out of shotgun and stuff. They didn't run enough. I didn't feel like they ran enough. Obviously, with the running backs, I didn't feel like they ran enough plays out from underneath center. Their play action pass game isn't as strong from that shotgun as it is when you're turning your back and running the ball that way. But I think the other thing too, when you're talking about Lance, was we should have seen this coming. Greg Papa had met with Kyle Shanahan and did a deal for NBC Sports before the game against Arizona. And Papa was asking, because up till that point, because Lance has only run something like, because I was looking at the numbers, about 89% of his snaps with the 49ers have been from shotgun. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's way out of whack, and it was that way on Sunday. But he said, this is what Shanahan said when he was asked about that. He says he'll be under center more now that he's going to be playing the whole game. But when he's come in before, we always want the threat of him running it. And there's not much of a threat when you're under center. I mean, there's a threat of a quarterback sneak, but once you get in a pistol, you get in the shotgun, now you've got to think about it. Now you can use all 11 guys, and there's a threat of the zone read. There's a threat of options and stuff. So whether you're going to do it now, it's kind of irrelevant, but you want the defense to always have to honor it. And that's exactly what we saw in the game. Is we've heard him talk 11 on 11 football a few times. And I just feel if this is what the offense is going to be with Trey Lance going forward, they're doing him a disservice and they're doing their team a disservice, because that's not going to be winning football, and it's not going to make for a long career for Trey Lance.
Absolutely not. And what happened to being creative? You can't run under center with a quarterback all of a sudden. I mean, you can't naked bootlegs and regular bootlegs and rollouts and high-low reads with a running out. I mean, there are things you can do to run out of under center. It's not. How about dropping back and the pocket collapses and he makes things happen? I mean, you can do that whether you snap the ball under center or shotgun. I don't know, Jack. It's crazy. This is like one of the few things you and I have agreed on this offseason or during the season, and I love it. But yeah, man, I mean, it's Kyle Shanahan. It's crazy.
Yeah, and when he's talking about the running game, he's talking about a run. He's not talking about the play action,
sure.
the scramble stuff, and that's where I just want to see Trey Lance play quarterback, because I think if you just line him up and you just let him play quarterback, you give him a couple of runs a game, because the way they treated him was really like the way that North Dakota State treated him in the national championship game at the end of the 2019 season, because
right.
He was struggling throwing the ball in that game, and it was a cold, windy day, I think, from what I remember. And so they put him in the shotgun. He ran the ball 30 times in that game, which was way more than he usually did, excuse me. And I just didn't understand that. They were running him like he looked like Tim Tebow in the way they used him in the running game on Sunday. He didn't look like Tim Tebow necessarily as a passer, but as a running quarterback, whatever you want to call him. He did.
Yeah, there was nobody. I mean, his athleticism was a plus to everybody. It wasn't the main reason he was drafted, right? Like with Lamar, that was a big reason why he was drafted. He was so mobile, and it was like, okay, well, his passing's going to have to get better. Like, we know that we're going to have to teach that and make him a quarterback throughout the years. And they've done a fantastic job of doing that. But with Lance, the running was supposed to be secondary, or at least complementary, a 50-50 proposition, but they made it seem like that's all he can do, and he can't throw the ball and he's incompetent. It's just, I don't know. It's frustrating to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Totally with you on that one. So kind of given where they are right now, we're at 49ers are at 2-3, coming off a 3-game losing streak. They have the bye week, coming off the bye week now. What should 49er fans expect going forward? What should their expectations be?
Yeah, I feel like the 49er fans should still expect 10 wins. I mean, I look at the rest of the schedule and I see a scenario where they can run off 11. I feel like this bye week couldn't have come at a better time. And again, when you look at things before the season, you never want to have an early bye week. This team needed this bye week. You've got players like K1 coming back, Hasty. You had players that were a little banged up, really both the quarterbacks, your left tackle, Greenlaw, it sounds like, is coming back. So I just feel like this bye week is coming at a really good time. You're coming off of 3 losses. It's probably good for the team to sit in that, and understand that this is not good. Like, you guys expected to be a Super Bowl contender. And, everybody from Kyle down needs to kind of sit in that 3-game loss and feel that for an extra week. I think it's a good thing. And so I just feel like your expectations shouldn't change. This should be a playoff team. If your expectations were Super Bowl, then yes, they should change. But should you expect a 10-win season? I think that's fair. And if you don't get a 10-win season, then, you can look at that however you want. But I think this team should still win 10 games, and that should be your expectation.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I think expecting them to win 10 games is about where it should be, because that's kind of holding them accountable to be maximizing the talent that they have on the team. And are they that talented to where they can do that? I'm starting to have my doubts a little bit with some of the things that we have. It's either a lack of talent, or it's just because the coaching is not getting them ready for the game. It's one of those two things, because you're seeing the same issues week in and week out. And that's either a coaching issue or it's a talent issue. Because typically what happens, if you don't have enough talent, you're making those mistakes because you're trying to make up for your lack of talent. So it's one of those two things. We're going to find that out over the next 12 weeks. And I agree with you also. I don't think having the early bye week, I know a lot of people kind of groaned when they first saw that, but team went to the Super Bowl in 2019 and they had the bye week in week 4. So they can make it through. I don't know Greenlaw, I don't know if he's actually going to be back, but I know they've got a bunch of other guys coming off, and
he's honestly probably the least important out of all the players that I named, just because Alshire has been playing so damn good anyways and might be the better player. But the other guys for sure. I mean, it sounds like K1's going to be back, right? And Hasty.
Well, it sounds like K1's going to be back, and Hasty is. They opened up his practice window, so we'll see if it's going to be here pretty soon.
Yeah. Okay.
That's definitely one. So yeah, I think, it's going to be tough for them to get into the playoffs. This schedule, when you looked at it at the beginning of the year, it looked like, there were some games that you marked as wins that I'm not so sure that you can say that anymore. Cincinnati's a much better team than I think people gave credit for. They're going to be right in there in that race for number 7 with teams like the Saints and Minnesota. Who else am I missing? Probably the Saints in Minnesota would be that 7th team, maybe Carolina in that.
Carolina. Range.
Yeah. Those 3. And given everything that I haven't watched them enough, so I can't really give a whole lot, but it doesn't sound to me like the quarterback out in Carolina does very well when he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. So,
no.
It sounds to me like there's whoever does get in on that 7 seed is going to be a team that's right about that same level as the 49ers are this year.
Yeah, well, the good news is even if there's another team that makes it out of another division, Seattle's probably. I mean, they're not making the playoffs at this point, right? They're done with, unless Gino turns into something that he's never been. Their season's pretty much over, so that's good. You don't have to compete with Seattle in the sense of fighting for a playoff spot. You're obviously going to have to beat Russell Wilson in week 13 or whatever it is that you end up playing him. He'll probably be back by then. But just overall, as far as a team, that's one less team that you have to compete with, which is good, because I think pretty much everybody at the beginning of the season, at least, would have thought that a Russell Wilson-led Seattle team would have been a playoff team. So that's one less team that you got to compete with there.
Yeah, and that's you're looking at a Seattle team that probably has 7 losses by the time they play the 49ers in week 13.
Right.
Yep. You look at their schedule, they have a bye week in the middle of that, but they have the Saints, the Packers, and the Cardinals. Those are all games I think that they probably aren't going to win based on the way that it's set up. Washington, they might be able to beat. And Jacksonville is a team that I think you'd expect them to be able to defeat there, especially at home.
Yeah.
But it could be a really tough for them if they're at 7 losses by that time in the season. I think you could pretty much knock them out of this, because they still have to play the Rams after that. They still have to play the Cardinals again, and that puts them at that even if they split those games, that's probably 8 losses on the season.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to get in it with 9 wins this year.
No.
So, as far as the team, who do you have as your MVP through the first 5 weeks?
Man, I'm gonna go Bosa. The way he's bounced back from that injury, and the defense really needs that spark. Fred Warner was a guy that I really thought could be the defensive player of the year this year, and he just hasn't lived up to what I thought he could do this year. You know, it's still a decent year for him, but it doesn't seem like all pro Fred Warner this year. So this defense losing Verrett with Fred Warner maybe not playing up to what I'd hoped he would be this year. I just feel like Bosa is kind of that injection they need on that defense, and he's played about as good as he can. I mean, 5 sacks, and he's getting after the quarterback a ton. Bosa's so freaking good, and coming off of an injury, he's played a ton also. And for him to really not practice at all throughout the offseason and just have the stamina and agility that he's had, it's absolutely incredible. The guy's a freak. So for me, it's Bosa to this point.
Yeah, that's one of the names that I wrote down, and the other one that I wrote down was Deebo Samuel.
Yeah,
And he's been the offense. He's basically been, he's getting the ball 4 times, the targeted 4 times as much as the next closest wide receiver. He's got 52. He's on pace to have 176, 177 targets this year in a 17-game schedule, the most that any 49ers had since Jerry Rice did it in 16 games in 1995. So he's kind of on another level right there. And in a lot of ways, like we just talked about earlier, I'd like to see those targets maybe go away from him a little bit so they can start spreading the ball around. I think that's necessary for them moving forward, quite frankly, to get the ball out of his hands a little bit more and get the ball into Brandon Ayuk, get the ball to some of these other playmakers and let him go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Deebo, I mean, it's tough to say that the number 2 receiver in all of the NFL right now is not the best player on the team. I just, luckily for the 49ers, that's the one bright spot they have on offense, because the offense has been really, really bad to this point, but he's been amazing.
Yeah, he sure has. That's for sure. Let's go to the next one then real quick. Let's flip that bad boy around. We went from the positive, now we go to the negative. Who is the most disappointing player through 5 weeks?
It's got to be Alex Mack. I mean, wasn't he supposed to be the guy that brought this offensive line together and got the protections all figured out and was really going to be the glue guy? We finally got a center that's going to be it, right? And this offensive line relies so heavily on the center. Oh my gosh, he's been awful. Absolutely awful. To the point, Jack, where I was watching that Steeler-Seattle game last night, and I was jealous, admiring the center for the Steelers, just how well he snapped the ball. It was crazy. I've never looked at that from a center, and it's just kind of what you expect. Like a center knows how to get a ball quickly to a quarterback. Uh-huh. I mean, not only has the blocking been atrocious, the checks have been atrocious, but the snapping has been atrocious. It's really hard to watch this guy play football right now. Mack is by far the most disappointing player, in my opinion, on this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going to go with a different one, but yeah, when you watch him snap the ball, and it's not even, there's not even any like pace on the ball. That's the thing. It's there, it's just kind of the ball's coming up and they're reaching out and grabbing it. It's like, pretty much anybody can go out there and just kind of do what he's doing as far as the snaps right now. It's bad. And so I had Mack as one of them. Another one that I have Javon Kinlaw down. I think, more than anything, I think it's disappointing based on expectations that a lot of people had for what he'd be able to do in week 2. I just, or in season 2, excuse me, not week 2, but in season 2, after having a full off season and whatnot, he's never going to be a pass rusher. He's never going to give that to the 49ers. He's a decent player. He's going to be able to get some cleanup sacks every once in a while, but he's never going to be the guy that he's replacing. He's not even close to that. And I don't even think he's that good as a run defender, quite frankly, unless they put him at the nose when they do their odd front. Other than that, when they're in split and their wide 9 look, he just gets pushed around like everybody else.
Yeah, Kinlaw, it's tough, right? Because I think the early expectation was he would be really, really good. But that knee injury, I mean, it just seemed to linger all off season, and I'm still not sure that he's fully past it. I mean, I would imagine this is kind of the way that it's going to be for him. Not a lot of practice throughout his career, and they're going to roll him out there on game days, and hopefully that's enough to get better. But you know, he's been okay. He's shown flashes. As far as the pass rushing, he's been probably a better pass rusher than what I thought, but he certainly hasn't been a difference maker in the run game, like you said. I can see why you would go with Kinlaw. I mean, just all the way around from being the 14th pick and a big reason why Buckner's not on this team. It's understandable why you would say Kinlaw's not it.
Yeah. I'm just maybe I'm a little frustrated with that whole thing, and Buckner was a guy that they could have capped. It was going to be tough financial wise, but it could have made it work.
And it's Buckner week, of course. So why not throw Kinlaw under the bus?
Perfect. There you go. That's exactly it too. Exactly it. As far as moving on from that, let's look forward now to 49ers Colts. I know it's only Monday. We don't really know yet. We're going to get a lot more idea of what's happening on Wednesday and Thursday from a quarterback perspective and from some of the injury perspective. But what is your way too early prediction for 49ers Colts?
Man, I just feel like no matter what, it's going to be a close game. I think, the Colts are probably not as good as the 49ers, but they're not that far behind. Their record doesn't show it, but they've been competitive in some of these games. Their best offensive lineman is Nelson. I think he's back for this game, so that kind of sucks that they're going to have to play against him. And, Wentz is still decent. I mean, I don't think he's as bad as what people make him out to be. I feel like he can still get it done and cause the 49ers some problems. So, I'm going to say the 49ers, their offense still probably won't be super explosive. So I don't see them putting up 30. I'm going to go 24-20 49ers, but I really don't feel good about it. And this is it, right? Like you lose to the Colts, it's over for you guys. You lose off of a bye week against a team that hasn't looked the best at home. It's curtains for you. The 49ers have to win this game, but the Colts are desperate too. They have to win the game as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. You look at the Colts coming into this thing, and they've kind of gotten rolling a little bit. In the last few weeks, they've gone from an 0-2 start to 2-2 over the last 4 weeks. They only lost to Los Angeles by 3 points. They had a tight game there. They beat up Miami. They go to overtime against Baltimore before taking Houston to the shed yesterday. This is a game that, I don't know. You look at their opener and they lost by 12 to Seattle, but that's different. I mean, week 1 games are always a little goofy. Sometimes week 2 games are as well, but considering that they were playing their second game at home, I think that one balanced out a little bit more. So I think this is really a team I think this team is a little bit tougher. I think they get Quentin Nelson back this week. The run game is going to get helped out by that. I really want to pick the 49ers here because I think they have what it takes. The other concern is, Carson Wentz beat him last year with a team that isn't as good as this one. And if Wentz just kind of stays alive, first off, hopefully he makes it to Sunday, like Kyle Shanahan said. But but if he can just keep the plays alive, and we know that he can run some read option stuff and stuff like zone reads and stuff like that might give the 49ers defense a little more of a fit because of the fact that you've got Jonathan Taylor back there as well. So it's all a long way from me saying I think it's going to be about a 3-point game one way or another. I'm going to go ahead and say 23-20 49ers. Not feeling really super confident about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. It really is. I mean, this is not going to be easy. That's for sure. And anybody that thinks it is I think they're sadly mistaken. The Colts are, and you talked about it. Week 1's weird. I mean, Pittsburgh beat Buffalo week 1. Like that's week 1 in a nutshell. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's it. Week 1, all kinds of stuff happens. The 49ers got lucky because they played a really bad team. I think, you look back at that 49er game against the Eagles. I know that's week 2, but it's kind of in the similar situation because that's home opener week for Philadelphia. That Philadelphia defense isn't the same defense anymore that the 49ers faced in that first half because they lost their defensive end. I think it was defensive end, one of their better
Yeah.
defensive players,
Hmm.
right? So at that time, the Eagles were maybe a little bit tougher opponent for the 49ers than they've been the rest of the way. But
Graham, right? Graham's his name.
yeah, Brandon Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a tough game for the 49ers. We all talked about this. So this is one of those games that we talked about when we did our prediction show. And I think a lot of folks were talking that this was a loss for the 49ers, if I remember correct.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
I
I thought it would be a loss for sure.
yeah, and I think I might have had it as a win, but I thought it was going to be a tight. Uh, I thought it was going to be a very physical style game, and I'm not sure if that physical style is the 49ers anymore. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what DeForest Buckner does this week, um, and if he's able to come in here and really cause trouble.
Well, listen, I mean the interior part of our offensive line is the weakness, and Buckner. I get he hasn't had a Buckner style season, but I mean he's still a really good player, and that he should eat a lot this week. And then you look at the other side. I mean the 49ers really have had troubles at times throughout the season, giving up big runs up the middle. And here we go. I mean, you're talking about a line that has really, really good interior offensive, probably the best guard in the league in Nelson, and a really good running game and a really good running back. So I'm curious to see if the 49ers can hold serve here. I think that's the key for them is they have to be able to stop that run game up the middle and make sure that the Colts don't control this ball for long periods of time. I think that's what this game comes down to.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I see this playing out. Adrian says 27-17 49ers.
Mhm.
I think when I look at it, I think this is a game you're going to see a lot of yards. Jonathan Taylor's going to run for a bunch of yards, so it's going to be a matter of can they stop Carson Wentz when they get down to the 20? Can they force field goals? That's really what it's going to come down to. And the Flyers are probably going to get limited to 8 possessions in this game. If that's what's happening, if both teams are running the ball you expect, each team's probably going to get about 8 possessions. What can you do with those 8 possessions right now? The 49ers can't get out of their own way in the first half of games. So we'll see. I don't feel comfortable at all saying the 49ers are going to win this like I did, but
No.
who knows? I might talk myself out of it by Friday when I put my prediction in writing.
That's why we said it's way too early predictions because we both reserve the right to change our mind. It's only Monday, all right? Normally, we're 4 days into the week when we have this show, and this prediction is usually what we stick to. But being Monday, it's this is a tough one.
Well, yeah. I mean, I looked at the Arizona game, and I know when we were on, I had said Arizona was going to win, and I flip flopped on that one. And when I went and wrote my article because I did a bunch of digging in, and I was really liking the 49ers running the ball against Arizona, and not realizing that the quarterback was going to be the running back that day. But, so that the night now why I'm bitter on that about that loss. No. I don't know. I'm hoping that they can win it. They need this win. If they don't win this game, then I think we're looking at a season. If the 49ers are the team that everybody thinks they should be in terms of a playoff team, they win this game. If they lose this week, then you're looking at. I think if they lose this week, you need to start changing your sights on what this team is going to be.
Yeah, listen, absolutely, and that's just it, right? Like this is their playoff life on the line, and we talked about expectations being a 10-win team. It's if they lose this game, those expectations are out the window for one, and for two, if you lose this game and don't play Trey Lance the rest of the season to just figure things out with him, I mean that's an even bigger mistake. So
yeah. So we'll see how this game turns out. I think what's going to happen is Jimmy Garoppolo is going to come in and he's going to lead the team down for I don't know, we'll see how it works out. But maybe he will. Who knows? I think he's going to be the starter, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Listen, I hope that he does. At the end of the day, like the backs are against the wall, and they got to get wins. And whether that's Jimmy, that's Trey, it doesn't really matter at this point. I just want to see the team win. So hopefully that happens.
Yep, 100%. And I think old team over here. I think he hopefully heard us talking about this because I agree with that, and I think that's what we talked about earlier. The QB drama has ruined the team. I agree with that 100%. 49ers should have moved on from Garoppolo when they made the move, not because I don't like Jimmy Garoppolo, but there was too much love for Garoppolo in that locker room, and you use 3 first round picks on a guy to come in and become your leader, and then you expect the team to follow him while at the same time following the guy that's already been the established vet, and yeah, that's really I think the reason that this team is out of whack like they are. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Steve-O says that he would have donated $1,000 to me a month ago for my pain. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That means the world to me.
Well, he can do it now. I mean, it's my channel. He's
Yeah,
he can do that
yeah.
here. Maybe he doesn't like my opinions as much. I don't know.
Well, listen, I'm not monetized anymore, so you can't do it anymore. That's for sure. You got to wait at least another month or two before I'm able to do that. So,
Hey, at least you got your channel back. I'm really excited that that's happening, and
yeah.
I think I heard you're over 1,000 already. Is that right?
Yeah. We're approaching 1,400, so hopefully we can get it back. It definitely hurts, right? We were near 3,000 subscribers, and really we were talking. It was the content, man. That's 8 months worth of content. You talk about the interviews we did with Coach McAvoy. I've had a lot of really good people on that were amazing. Guy Haberman was on. The Alex Rollins, I've had him on, and all that content is just gone forever. So, that's the real gut punch, but we're on our way back. So happy about that.
There you go. Hey, don't worry about it. Luke says he hasn't monetized since 1975. But then,
Nice, Luke. Nice.
real quick before we do get out, I'm just going to throw this one up here. Luke says, when the head coach gets a raise and the GM goes radio silent, something is very wrong. I don't know if you saw the uh, the tweet earlier tonight with John Lynch talking to Matt Miyoko about the 49ers and Miyoko asking him if there was issues or whatever it was. Have you seen that tweet?
Yeah.
You know, to me, I saw that, and that was one of the funniest things that I've seen. And it's, I don't have anything against John Lynch. I liked him as a player. He is who he is as a general manager. But listening to his response in that quick interview, it reminded me of Martin Short's character from Saturday Night Live. I can't remember his name. It's Thurman, I think is his last name, right? And he's sitting there and he's like, I'm not being defensive. What do you mean I'm not defensive? You're the one being defensive. I'm not being defensive. That's exactly what John Lynch reminded me of in that
Yeah.
interview. And I understand that he's got to be the face of the franchise, but he has not done anything. He hasn't done anything to help the franchise in the last couple of weeks, because his comments about Brandon Ayuk on KNBR last week were pretty bad, and they're sticking with that story, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you've got a guy who had the second best rookie season in wide receiver history with the 49ers, and you're saying that he's not deserving of more targets than Mohamed Sanu. And
that whole thing's frustrating, right, Jack? Because you've got a situation there where both things can be true, right? Maybe he's not living up to the expectations that you had for him coming into year 2. That's fair, but it doesn't mean he's still not the second best receiver on this team and the second best pass catcher on this team when Kittle's out. So the fact that you're just kind of doghousing him and not designing plays for him, that's the baffling part to me. Is again, he may not be progressing at the level you'd hope, but he's still clearly the second best receiver on this team.
Yeah, no, he definitely is, and to be getting 15 targets through 5 games, that's just it makes absolutely no sense. I understand that Deebo Samuel is a heck of a football player, but you go into a game with no George Kittle, and you can't make him a focal point of your offense. That's rough.
Yeah.
Even if it's just screens or whatever, he just got to get the ball in his hands, kind of like what we saw last year. And I think maybe that's part of it too, is maybe part of the reason he got the numbers he got last year was because he played a lot without Deebo. Right. And so he kind of, in a lot of those games, took on the Deebo Samuel role. And so he was getting those targets maybe a little bit more often. So I don't know. The last thing I'm going to say tonight is nobody knows who Kyle Shanahan is after 5 years, because he's never been in any he's never coached anywhere beyond 4. This is the first time he's gone past 4 years with a team, and it's really the first time where he's had to deal with a lot of roster turnover and all the stuff that goes along with being in one place for a long period of time, and also people are getting used to him, and you can only be the smartest guy in the room for so long when you're not winning.
Yep, absolutely. 100% right. And, I can go into a lot of things with his leadership. I really could. There's a lot of things that, just career wise that I know I've made mistakes in. And I see a lot of those things in Shanahan. And, fortunately I was able to correct those things, but, maybe for him, he's not able to. And it's one of those situations where he'll need to go to a new team where he has less power and before he's able to change and do whatever. With San Francisco, he's always going to have that power. You can't strip that power from him. And I just don't see him ever being a long-term winning coach here. I really don't. I just think there's some character flaws that are always going to be a thing. And as long as he has power, it just kind of is what it is. So we'll see what happens with Shanahan.
Yeah. And I got to say real quick, I saw your article for All 49ers SI, and that was a really good article. It went in directions that I wasn't expecting it to when I started reading it. And I really liked what you had to say about the personality piece of that, because I think there's a lot of truth to everything that you were saying there. And there's a big portion of it where, from a leadership standpoint, you've got to lead from the front. And that's not what Kyle Shanahan feels like he does. It feels like he leads from behind, because there's a lot of pushing. There's not a lot of pulling. And I think that's the issue that he's facing with the 49ers.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And thank you, man. The article, I had a lot of fun writing that one for sure.
Yeah. Every once in a while you get one that's comes out pretty easy, because you don't really have to think about it. It just kind of flows. And it's nice when that happens. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, before we get out of here, make sure that you subscribe to Jack's channel. You're climbing up there. I mean, you've got to be pressing towards 3,000 yourself, I would imagine at this point, at least 2,500, right?
I'm at 23 something, almost 24.
Okay. So let's get this guy to 2,500. Hit the like and subscribe and bell notifications so you never miss an episode here on Jack's channel. And a couple of you were asking about my channel. It's still Last Second Sports. If you were subscribed to the old Last Second Sports, obviously it disappeared. So you just have to research for Last Second Sports. Once the old one went away, nobody else had that name. So I was able to keep it. So Last Second Sports, just type it in and give a subscribe over there. If you decide to do so, I would appreciate it. But the first video that we put up was a relaunch video. It's about 2.5 minutes long. Go peep that video, and in the comments say that you have subscribed. That will enter you in to win $100 in fan gear that we will be giving away November 3rd. And it's just to help with the relaunch. So if you have subscribed, give yourself the credit of doing so and enter yourself in that drawing. So I appreciate each and every one of you.
Yeah, definitely. Get over to Jesse's channel, Last Second Sports. Make sure you're over there, because those guys do a great job. They didn't deserve what happened over there as far as losing everything. And we want to get them back up and running, and to, over 3,000 subscribers, I think they had, like he said. And we want to get them up there back there as soon as possible. So I know you already love him from everything he's put together before. So make sure you get over there. And thank you all for joining tonight. As far as future shows, I'm possibly going to be doing a call-in show tomorrow. I'm not sure about Jesse. You got a call-in show tomorrow?
Yeah, usually on Tuesdays I'll do I try not to step on your toes. So what I'll do is I'll usually have a guest on, and then around that 10:30 Eastern time, I'll flip it to a call-in so people can do the call-in with you and then come over to me. So yeah, I'll probably end up doing that. And you and I will talk off camera. I've got a way to help you out with that call-in stuff that I can get you covered. So we'll talk about that.
Perfect. So make sure you're over there tomorrow night on his channel as well, and I'll have Niner Chatter over here too. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we will be back at you next week at our normal time on Thursday. But until then, enjoy your week. Go 49ers on Sunday for all of you, and thank you all for joining. Have a great night.